There's this massive compromise in the world of espresso that we've all just sort of accepted. Usually, if you want high-end, let's say, end-game performance and a pro-level build, you're going to be spending, let's say, $5,000 to $10,000. Or for most of the rest of us, if you want to spend a little bit less than that, you're either going to be sacrificing on tech and features or build quality and materials. There hasn't been a lot of middle ground until this showed up. This is the Arkel Coast, and it's from a small team that kind of came out of nowhere from Portugal, and it lands smack dab in the middle of that compromise zone. It's got a lot of the features of the high-end machines, and they're going above in terms of build quality and materials. You know, we're talking needle valve flow control, saturated group, programming options, some of the best-in-class temperature stability, and honestly, when you look at the specs and features that it has, they shouldn't really all exist in one machine at this price point. And to get it to that price point, they did make some choices that maybe not everybody's going to agree with, but we'll get there. So I've had this on my bar for a couple weeks now, not nearly long enough for one of my typical machine reviews, but I'm just feeling like we gotta talk about this. So what I'm gonna do is, after several months of use, having it back there, using it every day, I'm going to follow this up with a lot more detailed review of this machine. This one was sent to me by the team at Cafune here in Canada as a review unit. Sarah and I are actually going to be in Montreal at the Cafune Showroom in a couple weeks here, February 27th and 28th. If you're in that area, we would actually love to meet you and serve some of our coffee. You can find more info on them down there in the description. So what makes this machine so disruptive? To understand the Coast, we need to look at some of those higher end machines and why people pay so much for them. Firstly, you have build quality and materials, generally kind of as a baseline. Then there's a couple specific features that you will find across a lot of them. Many of them are dual boiler, as is this one. That's kind of a nice to have, you know, with one brew boiler and one steam boiler, so you can do both steaming and pulling espresso at the same time. There are more affordable machines that also have that though. The more significant features that people tend to look for are saturated group, flow control, and programming options. Now, many of those higher end machines don't even combine all of that into a single package. In a lot of cases, you got to kind of mix and match. The Coast has all of those. But before we talk about any more of that, I think we should probably just make a cup of coffee here. Now, using the Coast feels very different compared to using a lot of other machines. There's no buttons or levers, anything like that. You just have this smooth glass panel up here at the front with all of your controls being these touch-sensitive buttons. I was kind of nervous about those, but they're all very naturally feeling to operate, very responsive. At least after 2 weeks. You have the pressure gauge right here. The top half is the steam boiler, which is a 1 liter boiler, and the bottom half is the brew boiler, which is 0.7 liters. Both boilers are made out of stainless steel, actually. In order to operate the steam, you just turn this knob forward right here. And if you want to purge it, you can just rotate it back, and then it will kind of snap back into place. Lots of power there. Then you have these 4 little lit up buttons in the center. The top 2 are for programming options. Now it's time-based programming, and all you do is you hold it for as long as you want the shot to pull, and then you let it go. And the next time you press that, it will run for that set amount of time. We're gonna come back to some quirks on that in just a sec. Then under that, you have the continuous brew option that will just start the pump when you press it and stop it when you press it again. And then at the very bottom, you have water control, which when you press it, will put water out of the water tap. And because that water tap comes off the brew boiler, it is not going to flash boil like setups where it comes off the steam boiler. The portafilter that comes with the Coast comes with a nice basket. It's a spouted portafilter, very hefty weight. I'm actually going to use a bottomless portafilter just so we can see the extraction a little bit better. This is a Passato portafilter, fits fine. I use the Weber Unibasket often in here as well. That fits fine too. Arkel does make a bottomless portafilter that you can order as an upgrade though. And just while I'm preparing my shot here, we're going to talk about that first really key feature, flow control. Now, flow control is a really, really powerful tool when it comes to making espresso. Basically what it does is it allows you to turn down the flow of your machine. You do this manually with this little knob over here on the other side, and this does a couple things for you. Number one, it will very gently pre-infuse. The Coast uses 2 vibration pumps, which has a very gentle ramp up anyways, but the flow control allows you to go super gentle and give a nice even saturation of that puck prior to your main pull. This can be very helpful, especially for light roasts, make for a more even pull and less channeling. You can also do other types of flow profiling where you're adjusting the flow throughout the course of the shot to get different results. Overall, it's a huge amount of added flexibility. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pop my portafilter in here. I'm gonna put my scale and shot mirror just in a bit of a funky spot, just so I can see it all. I'm gonna turn the flow control knob forward about 90 degrees, and then I'm gonna turn on the pump and we can hear those vibration pumps in action. Now, once I see even beating across the bottom of the basket, I can turn the knob straight up and get full pressure flow. Then once I have the weight I want, I just press the button again and we have our shot of coffee. This is a Brazilian that we roasted through our roastery, Got Coffee. Let's give it a taste. That is a great cup of coffee. Now, you may have noticed if you were really paying attention that my dial here only went up to 6 bar. And that's because I have adjusted this machine to pull at 6 bar. It's another great little feature that it has is an adjustable OPV, which will cap that pressure. And it's very easily adjustable right up here with a screwdriver. This is a lot harder to adjust on some other machines in a similar price point. So let's talk about some of those disruptive features. We already talked about flow control. It works via a needle valve over here, which uses a bypass system, which sends water to flow all the way around the needle portion of the valve. Slightly different design, slightly improved design, the Arkel team would say, compared to some others. We also have the saturated group. Now, the group is this part right here, the part where the portafilter actually attaches and the coffee comes out. And what a saturated group is that group is saturated in water from the boiler. In this case, the boiler is actually sitting right on top of that group. This is in comparison to what you would commonly see in an E61 style group. And when you make comparisons, saturated groups generally tend to be a lot more temperature stable. And even after pulling some very cursory initial readings with a special tool that I have to do this, the temperature stability of this thing is actually pretty wild. It's ready to roll in like 12 minutes. Well, you're still going to want to pull a blank shot to warm up your portafilter for all that. But once it is fully at temperature, it is going to be sticking right at the same spot, plus or minus within about 1 degree Celsius. Now, interesting note, I did find that if anything, it was a very, very slight rise towards the end of the shot, still within their spec though, as well as a slight offset from what the programmed temperature is. I found that the actual result, once it was at temp, was about 1 degree hotter than what you were programming it at. Not a big deal at all, just something to be aware of. The main thing here is super stable temperature, which it absolutely delivers and is actually a pretty impressive feat when it comes to using stainless steel boilers and a group head. All right, next feature is this programming right here. This lets you automate pulling espresso shots so you can just walk up to it, load the coffee in the portafilter, one touch, it will start and stop automatically. You don't have to do anything else. This is really great. Let's say if my wife Sarah wants to come up and use the machine and she doesn't want to bother turning dials or having to turn it off at the right time, remembering what the right output should have to be. It's nice for her to have an option where she can just walk up to it, one press, and it will pull a shot that she will have zero difficulty enjoying. Now, the trade-off with the programming in this machine is, number one, it's time-based, not volume-based. So volume-based programming is always more accurate. Time-based, you can still do a decent job with though. The one thing it doesn't account for is anything that you may have done with the flow control while you were programming. So my suggestion is if you're using the programming, just leave it all the way open and don't do any flow control adjustment, because for whoever comes next, it'll make it a lot more confusing. There is a pre-infusion setting that you can turn on for the time-based programming, which gets you part of the way there, but doesn't account for the needle valve. One thing that I do like about it though is the solenoid doesn't activate during that pre-infusion phase, so that's a good thing. Still, to have both of those options available in one machine is really, really, really great. Couple other really great features that it has. The on switch is over here, and right next to it, there's another switch to actually turn the steam boiler off. So for people like us, we do a lot of espresso and steam is more of an occasional thing. It really lowers the energy footprint to not have to run that steam boiler when you don't want it. It's also got PID temperature control right up here, pre-infusion settings for those time-based controls, eco mode or standby, cleaning and descaling mode, and the adjustable OPV back here. One cool little feature that it has is the top panel right here has a slight slope, so you can put your cups up there, and it's very low profile, but they're not going to come off the front. Pretty cool. There's a couple other things that we're going to get to in a minute too, but even just all of that combined with those big three, you know, the saturated group, the flow control, and the programming, I don't know why other manufacturers haven't put all of that stuff into one package yet. There is one machine though that comes pretty close and has had a massive piece of the pie at this price point for literal years. The Lilite Bianca. Dual boiler, E61 style group head, flow control with a little paddle at the top there. It has some programming, but you still need to stop the shot manually every time. Comes in right around the $3,000 US mark here in North America and has just been basically the dominant player. And that's because there just weren't a lot of other options that had all those features. The Coast could take a big slice of that pie if they can scale. Now, the Bianca has a rotary pump where the Coast, as you heard, has that vibration pump. There are some advantages actually with the vibration pump, but also it doesn't sound as nice. On the other hand, the Bianca takes 20 to 30 minutes even to warm up and isn't as temperature stable once it's at temp compared to the 12 minutes and high stability of the Coast. The pressure is a lot harder to adjust on the Bianca if that's something that you want to do. A couple other things about the Coast that I really like. Under here, we got some barista lights, always on, even in standby mode, hallelujah. I really like always on barista lights. You know, you spend a lot of money on these machines. When it's sitting over there in the corner in the evening, you want to look over and feel like it's all lit up nicely. I know, but it's a thing for me. Also, they've built in a handy little feature to fully drain the boilers if you want to do that to service the machine for any reason, which is not something that a lot of manufacturers do. So at this point, we're stacking up the features and you're probably saying, okay, I can feel this shoe drop coming. They're putting all these features in at this aggressive price point, you know, just over $3,000 US, right in the same territory as the Bianca. They are cutting corners somewhere. So I dug into this and I very quickly realized that build quality and supply chain management is like a top priority for these guys, which I really appreciate. Almost all of the parts are either made in-house in Portugal or European sourced. There are a couple exceptions. Number one is the steam wand, which is stainless steel and made in China. And the second is the portafilter, which is also stainless steel and made in China. As far as all the rest of it, they are doing the work on these parts. They make a shockingly large amount of it actually in their own factory, including the chassis, the stainless steel boilers, and the needle valve. The needle valve is actually their own design, but it's not just where they're sourcing the parts, it's also the materials that they're using. There's actually only one very small piece of brass, and that's inset into the group under here. You can actually see it, and it's not actually the whole part, and it doesn't actually touch any water. What it's there for is to make rotating that portafilter in and out a little bit easier and more durable. So when it actually does wear down over time, you can just unscrew and replace that little brass insert, and you don't actually need to replace your whole group. Again, a focus on serviceability. Almost all of the hot water path inside this machine is made out of stainless tubing, excluding one food grade silicone hose, which goes to this tap right here. There's some other food grade silicone tubing in the cold water path in various places, all of which is certified up to 150 degrees Celsius. I'll leave more info on that material down in the description. The frame inside is made out of stainless, as are the body panels. Even the border around this front glass panel is made out of aluminum and powder coated. This back panel right here is made out of glass, very easy to clean. So besides that reservoir, there are no conventional plastics in the water path. And that reservoir is made out of injection molded SAN, that's styrene acrylonitrile. and is certified for food contact. So they're really going above and beyond here on the materials, and that's obvious when you look inside the machine. You know, when you look at a machine like the Lelite Bianca, Lelite is owned by Breville, and they carry the Made in Italy label. And if you really go digging on this stuff, you'll find that a product only needs to have substantial modification within Italy in order to be able to carry that label. And there's actually a lot of debate on how much of that machine is actually made right in Italy and how much is made in China and then imported and assembled. Moving up into the end game tier, you have machines like the La Marzocco Linea Mini. And if you buy a Mini R today, you actually aren't getting a full metal frame. Large parts of the metal frame in even the La Marzocco, which costs over $6,000 US, are made of plastic. So you're kind of left asking, if you get more features than a machine like a La Marzocco and higher quality materials, what exactly are you getting when you pay $6,000 for a Linea Mini? Maybe we'll save that conversation for another video. Anyone with experience, though, will tell you one thing, and that is serviceability. Any mobile espresso tech will show up and service a La Marzocco sight unseen. People know how they work, they know how to replace parts, they know they're going to be easy to work on. That is not going to be the case with a come out of nowhere new brand of home espresso machine. These machines are very serviceable and easy to work on, but especially if you're in a commercial setting, somebody still has to agree to actually come and service it. There are also a couple little things that I actually don't love with this machine, and because it's actually really great in a lot of other ways, I'm really gonna nitpick on some of this stuff. The water reservoir is back here and fillable from the top. And as long as there's nothing over top of your machine, it's actually pretty easy to do. If you've got it in like an under counter setup, that could be a little trickier. If you actually go to pull it out to fill it up, and you go to, let's say, set it down somewhere, grab your jug and fill it up, you actually can't even do that because this knob here is sticking out of the bottom. If that was just flipped so that I could set this down on the counter and fill it up with a jug or a faucet, that would be way better. One thing I noticed, this water tap over here, it's not perfectly straight, at least on my unit. It's just got a little bit of a tilt. Also, this is obviously a white unit. You know, I got a thing for white espresso machines. I'm not afraid to admit that. The black unit also looks very slick. And on the black unit, this drip tray is a ceramic coated black finish. And on the white unit, it's a stainless finish. I really wish, and this is a personal thing, that the white machine was available even as an upgrade with a white coated ceramic finish. And I gave that feedback to the Arkel team, and they said they actually do have a couple test pieces, and they sent me one. So maybe if enough people make noise about that, they'll offer that, or maybe that's a me thing. I'm gonna switch that now though, now that I finally said that. Also, just while I'm doing this drip tray here is great and massive, but also there's no baffles inside. So if it's really full and you go out to empty it, it's gonna slosh around a little bit more. A couple baffles in there would be nice. The silicone on the knobs on each side, I said I was really gonna nitpick here and I wasn't lying. You know, I know why the silicone is there because these knobs are connected to some elements inside that get kind of hot. I just don't love how it feels. The steam wand also has this silicone on it and not Cool Touch. I wish it was Cool Touch. And just being honest, I don't really love the shape. The Eco Mode standby is really great to keep a check on your energy consumption. I wish there was some programmability in terms of how much time, just because for me, I find that when I have that mode turned on, very often it's actually fully cooled down by the time I get ready for my next cup of coffee. So I wish I could still have it, but just set it for a longer period of time before it dials down that temp. Rotary pump would be really nice, you know, mostly just for the ears, but I think that they have that coming in an upcoming model at a little bit of an increased price. And volume-based programming is always nicer than time-based. Some of those things come down to personal preference, but somehow, Arkel has managed to create a machine that I think will appeal to both enthusiasts and the mass market. You know, it's got all the flow control, manual stuff going on. It also looks super clean on the counter, and you can automate it with one-touch programming. It's a pretty wild scope to cover. I think their biggest challenge isn't actually anything to do with the machine, changing it, tweaking it, how it works. any of that. It actually has to do with how they scale their company over the next couple of years. You know, you've seen this over and over and over again in the space. Some new company releases some groundbreaking new product. There's a ton of interest, and then they struggle for literal years trying to ramp up production to meet demand without, and this is the key, without sacrificing quality. Can Arkel do that? I hope they can. Time will tell. In the meantime, this is a very impressive release. I look forward to revisiting this in more detail in a few months. Let me know your thoughts and what you want to see about this machine down there in the comments. I hope your next cup of coffee is fantastic, and we'll see you next time.